Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
So somebody reached out to us, and they left us a message on Instagram.
Yes.
I'm going to read that right now.
Okay, great.
And that's how we're going to kick this thing off.
All right.
So this follower. Well, I was like, the person that's online
The person
here,
who wrote it.
the person who wrote it says, do you two have a podcast episode or episodes where you talk strictly about your marriage prior to the healing and how you guys were before, how you came to terms with knowing you both needed deep healing, and then now how you came together and created this amazing platform?
Aww.
And I was like, you don't need a whole episode for that. I'll tell you how it worked. We trauma bonded. Done. You're welcome. Next question.
Yeah, when I read that, I thought it was a great question, and I felt really inspired to actually share about that journey. I think we are in such a good I almost got emotional.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but in a good way. I thought
What?
we're in such a good place together in our marriage to be able to look back
Yeah.
and be able to honestly and vulnerably communicate about what the process has looked like and been like.
Yeah.
Without triggering and hating each other for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels so beautiful because there was a time that we could not talk about our history without getting in huge fights.
Yeah. I do appreciate a lot of the work that we've done. I think there's phases of healing and understanding of our own humanity and humanity in general
Yes.
that we've gone through, that each phase has been vital to build to the next phase. But the most recent ones have been so key.
Yeah.
Understanding our nervous system, connecting to our bodies.
Understanding our attachment systems.
Yeah, those have been super clutch.
Those three things have really completely transformed our lives, but built on a lot of other.
Yeah, years of history of doing certain emotional heart work and rewiring the way that we think. So there's been so many elements that's led to a lot of the conversation today. But when I think about how things kicked off in the beginning, it was interesting.
Wait, just for all of you listening, we're about to do story time.
Yeah,
We're gonna
today's going to be a lot of story, and it's also going to give insight
to a lot of the relationship faux pas that most couples find themselves in, bad dances, if you will, that people find themselves stuck in, cycles. We're going to kind of talk about the cycles we got stuck in, how that happened, and how we moved through it. So you want to kiss us off?
Kiss us off? Yeah, I'd be happy to do whatever that was. When we initially got together, I was working for like an itinerant minister type guy who traveled and spoke, and I lived with him in a house full of guys. It was a frat house, basically. Guys in their early 20s trying to figure out how to do life. And there was a lot of beauty to that. There was some cool redemptive things in the relationship aspect of me and the other guys having camaraderie. And there was beautiful things that I experienced inside of the job, while also I was in the middle, and I didn't understand what was happening to me at the time, but I was in the middle of experiencing some pretty intense domination and other forms of abuse that I haven't talked publicly about to this point. And I'm going to get into that maybe in my future.
Yeah.
But the result of that, as we were getting together, like, love life, we were two very much like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young people who were just like, the world's our oyster and miracles happen and we can dream beyond.
We can do anything.
Yeah, we can do anything. And that was really cool. We had a lot of like synergy inside of that. And
we had chemistry.
And we had a lot of play.
Yeah.
You know, there was an amazing amount of play and that was exchanged.
Yeah, we were really silly. I could be fully like my little kid girl self, you are so non-judgmental in those ways. Like you have a lot of delight towards my playful side. And I felt like I really enjoyed your playful side. And you felt like there's a lot of healing for you getting to show that and have that be welcomed and loved. And so
yeah, there's a lot of that goodness, but one of the points that I want to get to, I want to land this plane. Is that what I didn't understand is the environment that I was in had opened up and really triggered a lot of childhood pain that had been dormant, like the experience of domination. And what it had begun to do was initiate complex PTSD that I couldn't articulate. And inside of my being, I was over being dominated.
Yeah.
I was over being abused.
Yeah.
There was something breaking at that point inside of me that was saying, I cannot and will not do this anymore. And really at that point in my life, I was beginning to form an edge inside of me where I was pretty agreeable. I came from a background, and one of my 4F responses was a heavy fawn.
Yes.
I was like,
for those of you just listening, 4F responses are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And those are the ways that we react to threat in order to survive.
Right.
And so one of the ways you would go into survival was to make people happy. Fawn is making people happy.
How can I please you? And then we're going to be good. Because if I can please you, I can change the way that you're relating to me and I can get taken care of and I can become safe once again. There was either that or there was freeze.
Yeah.
So I'd go into deep lockup inside of my being. And I finally found the F response, the fight response out of that. And that's where I started transitioning into this fight response where it was like, you know what? Fuck you, all of you, F you. I'm done with you. I will not be dominated anymore. And that was something that was starting to organically unfold inside of me.
Yeah, you'd had like a snapping point. And I recognize it from, I got PTSD years later. Yeah. And when I got PTSD, there was this snapping point that something inside of me said, I can never be dominated again.
Yeah.
I can never experience this again. And but it became like my angry protector of and people who go into fight can have that where I'm like, I will never put up with somebody running over my boundaries, somebody not valuing me. And it came with a flood.
Yeah.
I didn't always choose to have reactions. What I would call like a PTSD snapping point was when my body started making decisions for me past any sense of control that I had.
Right. Your logic goes offline and the body just says, this is what I'm doing.
Even when you're like, this isn't what I want to do. Or sometimes you are blacking out because your body's just like, nope, I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
And so I think that was beginning to happen for you before we got married.
Yeah. It was a slow bleed into that situation.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting together, and our whole first year was 6 months of traveling around the United States. Another
in your
6
truck.
In my truck.
Yep.
Staying at random people's places or people that we knew or friends of friends. And then 6 months of living back in Burbank, California, and not working. We were around each other 24/7 for 365 days.
Yeah.
And we entered into that having no idea the underlying issues each of us really had.
Oh, no.
We couldn't articulate the realities of when we first engaged into the relationship, I had normalized so much about my story. I was either dissociated from it or normalized it. So once we engaged into our life, I'm telling random
normal stories
from my history of my childhood. And you're like, huh.
I'm like, that sounds crazy. That is abuse. That's literally what abuse is.
And I was like, no, that's just what happens. and it took me years to unpack the depth of some of the abuse that took place inside of that workplace that I was at, where I had normalized it. I'm like, I guess this is just the way it is, and I'm the problem.
Yes.
That's the other thing, is that there was a sense of, I must be the one that's the problem because I have pain or I don't like something. I must be bad. So we get together, and there was just a super big normalization in that first year. There's exchanges that you and I are having that feel cataclysmic at times. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Why is this happening? And I felt powerless, helpless, out of control. I felt like everything was spiraling in between incredible moments of connection, fun, play. But over in the chaotic end of stuff, I found myself spiraling out, breaking down, sob crying on my own, taking drives, freaking out, being like, I don't know how to do any of this. I feel powerless. I don't have a model for how to do any of this. I don't know why I behave the way I do. I don't know how to help her in her behavior. And that first year was both really cool and explorative and really painful and maybe traumatizing for the both of us. There was the trauma bonding taking place.
100%. Yeah, I think our first conflict that we had made a very big impression on me. You came and said, hey, do you think that when you drive my truck, that when you're done, you can take out the trash and the stuff that you brought in? And which felt like a normal request to me. But when you got done saying it, you say you flinched. I say you ducked. Like, it felt dramatic to me. There was some kind of like movement. And I was like, were you expecting me to hit you for saying that?
And that was a fascinating moment for me because I was like, I did have a pretty big body reaction to that.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Well,
and my body was starting to tell a story that I wasn't aware of. My body's saying, I know something about your past. Would you like to take a look at this?
I've been hit before. It doesn't feel safe to have a voice. It doesn't feel safe to have needs. It doesn't feel safe to set boundaries. I'm not allowed to do this. And that panic your body felt was beyond your logic.
Right. My panic or my body response was saying something where my logic response was in denial. And all of a sudden, denial meets reality.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
And I have to be like, why is this happening? Why did I flinch? That's such a weird response. And my logic's like, but I have a perfect past. Everything was normal.
I remember, we were married at that point, and I thought you had a perfect past. And so I remember being like, oh my God, what did I get into? Like, that's a big shift,
right?
From perfect past to somebody that was hit.
Yeah.
Like, that's different. And immediately felt so much compassion for you. Like, I just felt so sad. I couldn't fathom anybody's body having a memory like that. Is so sad to me. That there's ever a threat of violence that you've experienced in your body enough that your body has decided it needs to protect you. So that was a really big beginning. And so you shared a lot of the things going on inside of you. I entered into our marriage with my whole bag of my own stuff. So I had chronic health issues my whole life. So from a young age, I always had health issues. But dramatically, when I turned 12, my hormones went crazy. I started a scenario where I was bleeding 90% of the time and having every hormone side effect possible for 90% of my life. And it was very difficult. And then when I was 14, I got into a car wreck, and I was like practically in bed for most of high school. I was laying on the couch or in bed almost every day, all day. And because of being impacted so much. And so I had experienced a lot of health issues. And when we got married, I was having crazy hormones and then started getting chronic infections. And so I was having huge emotions. I had so much hopelessness around my body. I had so much fear that I'm never going to be able to live a normal life. I'm never going to be able to keep a job. I'm never going to be able to be powerful. I'm never going to be able to thrive. There was just so much panic, and every time there was a new symptom, every time I couldn't get an infection under control, I just felt so out of control. And one of the things with the hormone problem, one of the reasons that I lived in denial for so much of my life was because of my hormone problem. So starting at a young age, I had this crazy hormone problem, which has dramatic mood shifts. Like there would be times I'd be weeping uncontrollably. I mean, like the way you'd cry at a funeral of your spouse that you'd been married to for 50 years, like weeping uncontrollably, or so much anxiety attacks, OCD looping, panic, yelling at myself, self-hatred. I had so much emotion and body stuff going on. And I also hadn't, I was aware on one level of stuff about my family. Like I'd been in counseling since I'd been 12 because my mom was like, I know that we're messing your life up. Here, we'll try to help it. So there was some things that I had awareness of, but there was so much of my childhood, the way I survived was like to freeze or dissociate. So I either went into a deep depression and could feel nothing, or I would just dissociate and pretend that it was all fine. And so I came in with these very big emotion swings. Now, looking back, I can see I was having emotions about how hard things were in my life. But growing up, me and doctors and everyone was like, yeah, you're having mood swings because this hormone problem is so bad. So the two were happening at the same time. It felt impossible to weed between, which would feel just chaotic for you.
Yeah. Like the mood swings that I would experience with you felt very similar to my childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so one minute everything is okay, we're happy. The next minute there is a dramatic emotional outburst on the other end of stuff that didn't make sense to my logic. Where is this coming from?
Absolutely.
The story that's been narrated for the last day is that everything's perfect. And then suddenly there's a flip and I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. And there was like this sense of, you expected me to fix it at some level. At least that was my interpretation of like, fix me. And I'm like, I don't know how to fix you. And that was very similar to my childhood experience as well. So I'm looping in, I can't fix her. She's getting more angry at me. I'm feeling more punished. And I would, on my end, I start flipping into that complex PTSD. I start going into deep self-protective mechanisms of these walls coming up inside of me. And all I felt like, I couldn't articulate it, but I felt this deep level of panic and anxiety that viscerally overtook me from head to toe. And the compounding result was oftentimes intensity or explosiveness, because it would be like, I'm trying, nothing's working, nothing's fucking working. And I'm like, boom, whatever. Like, I can't do it. I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
And there would be overwhelming what I would create then. So this is where we would begin to get into this bad dance, is that we would start feeling unsafe and we couldn't articulate, I don't feel safe. And we didn't know how to set certain boundaries. I was boundaryless. I didn't know what those were. The no was eradicated out of my mouth as a young kid, right? And so all of a sudden, you're responsive, trying to survive me getting big. I'm getting big because I'm feeling like I can't do anything right. And then we start the battle. This bad dance battle starts happening as we're, again, both fighting to get to feeling to a sense of safety, but we don't have language for that.
Guess what we just did?
What did we just do, Abby?
We created the connection cure. And I think this is the thing that I'm most excited that we've ever created for people, because it is all of the years of courses that we've made, making it available in one monthly healing membership where you get to be connected to people who are going on the same journey as you while getting access to all of the things that we have made: relationship glue, reclaiming you, the compassion project,
the Father series, Living Fully Alive, the Regulation Library.
Yes, we have so many things that we've created over the years. We've had over 10,000 people do our courses. We've met with over 4,000 individual clients. And now we have brought all of it together so that you could have access to all of it for less than one counseling session a month.
Yep. And what's really cool is that monthly we have live connection calls where people get together and have those connection moments, talk about what they're going through, how they're healing in their process. And that's been one of the number one things that people have said is so incredible about doing our courses is the community that they create and the healing that takes place inside of that community. I mean, we've had people find their spouses,
find their best friends, find their community, because finally there's people where they realize I'm not alone and I'm allowed to be loved right now in the messiness of my life before everything is fixed, before everything is perfect. You can belong before you have transformed. You can be loved before you're fixed in this community. And it is really rich and beautiful and healing. We're meant to heal with each other. And the whole point of why we made this is so that people could have a holistic healing pathway. We do so much with connecting to your body and actually learning how to move with your body through emotions so that things don't get buried alive in your body. The body keeps the score. We want to zero that score out. And then we have heart connection stuff where you're actually feeling empathy for yourself and others, where you're actually connecting to your own story and you're actually having time to not just learn logically about why you do what you do, but actually have new feelings towards yourself. And then we have all of the logic, the neuroscience, all of the reasons why your body and your brain do what they do so you can actually understand yourself for the first time and start to have kindness towards why your body is made to react the way it is so that you can heal. It's body, heart, and mind all together in a way that is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool membership because you get to stay as long as you want or as short as you want inside of it. You're not trapped inside of it, but you have access to an incredible community and great information. And so that is coming soon. You can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, and you can get on our mailing list there, and we'll let you be the first to know when we release that. But this is something we've been planning for a while now, and I'm glad we're getting to do it.
It's about to come out. When we got married, I had so much panic from my health issues that were happening and from unresolved childhood pain. You know, like I have your nervous system is programmed and repetitive. And so the panic that you feel in childhood, you often keep at that panic level. So when we got married, I have deep amounts of panic. And I can remember as we're talking about this feeling of like being trapped inside of my own body, feeling so much panic and looking out at you being like, please save me from the panic I'm in. Please help me out of this. Like I don't know what to do. Please help me. And then when you couldn't help me, I felt like you didn't love me.
Yeah.
You didn't it didn't feel like you wanted to help me. It didn't feel like you cared. So it was like my little girl would show up and be like, please reparent me. Please help me feel safe in my body again. Please help me know what to do with all the panic that I'm in. Now, I wasn't even articulating that. I was just reacting out of it all of the time because that's softer. Like if I came to you and was like, I'm in panic and I feel so scared.
Totally.
Can you please help me? I think you would have felt less scared. But panic often doesn't look soft. Panic often is intense energy. Even if it's not angry, it can just be like, it's like a ball of intensity. Like that's what it feels like. And so I have talked with so many women, and this is a huge marriage problem or relationship problem that women want their husbands to be able to help them through their scary emotions. They want a parent who can come help them regulate their nervous system. And I mean, almost every woman I know that we've helped walk through marriage issues has had that feeling of wanting their spouse to be able to help them with an emotion. And then when their husbands can't do it or their partners can't do it, then they're angry. They're hurt. They're rejected. They feel rejected. They feel hurt. They feel abandoned. So then they also feel angry. They feel blame. They feel accusation. And that is such a common human problem. I think of it like it goes back to, I think of Adam and Eve and how this story says, Eve, you will now turn to your husband to try to get your worth and identity, and it will never be enough. Mm-hmm. And so I think women often are turning to our spouse to heal our little kid, to help them regrow up. And then we're mad when they can't do that. And I did that with you. And really, I wasn't logically thinking. A lot of this is implicit memory. So implicit memory is the memories in my body. So my body is going into the panic I had at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I needed a parent who could help me through my panic when I was younger. And my parents didn't know how to do that. They tried their best. They were wonderful parents in that way. They really did try to figure out what to do with my big emotions, but they didn't know how to. And so I was like, maybe now you will finally know how to save me. And I thought, this is what love is. If you love me, you'll help me out of my panic. If you love me, you would save me. And so if you're not saving me, you must not love me.
Yeah. And that for me was some of the worst emotional experience that I could have had, because it was the daunting pressure. Again, it was the daunting pressure that was the entirety of my childhood. Mm-hmm. And the message that was sent to me from a young age is, you are deeply inadequate, and for it you will pay a price.
Yeah. So my fear confirmed you're inadequate. My blame confirmed, see, you are failing.
Yes. And that the anger that I experienced, or the withholding, or I don't know if this is the word withholding, but the self-protection or whatever the energy was that you went in was like, and here comes the punishment. I'm bad. I'm not enough. And now I'm getting punished for being asked to give something that is completely impossible.
Yeah.
And so it felt like a trick.
Yeah.
Like a dirty trick being played on me. Right.
Yeah. And the truth is, it was between, because it wasn't actually completely impossible. If I had the skills to narrate what was going on, right, there were actually things you could have done to help me. Yeah. Like, because co-regulation is this beautiful skill. But because neither of us had the ability to do that, you felt set up in an impossible situation, and I felt unloved.
Yeah, rejected, abandoned inside of it. And so these narratives are going on for each of us inside of our own heads. Yeah. And we keep cycling over and over into, again, what one of my amazing therapists called the bad dance.
Yeah.
And it would get exponentially greater, the energy to it, the aggression towards it, to the point where it's like, we have really good days, and then we have these explosive blowouts where there's cussing, screaming, yelling. I'm punching walls, putting holes in walls, throwing over furniture in the intensity inside of me. I'm having full on meltdown because I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm in my little kid self who's just like, I just want to feel safe. And it's interesting because we talked about this earlier, and I articulated before we were on the podcast. We talked about vulnerability, and you said there was a lot of vulnerability. I'm like, okay, I can agree there was vulnerability, but there was aspects of vulnerability that we didn't actually know how to engage.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, we failed miserably at vulnerability. It wasn't modeled. We didn't have articulation. Like, we didn't know how to sit across from each other and say, in the moment, I can tell inside right now, I'm feeling really scared. And I can tell that I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I can tell I'm scared. Part of my fear is I'm scared I'm going to get blamed. I'm scared you're going to abandon me. I'm scared of being rejected. Like, we didn't have vulnerable language to invite each other into better understanding early on. Oftentimes we went into a lot of blame and judgment of each other.
Yeah.
That was a way that we really articulated, like, you're being a jerk. You're being horrible. You're doing these terrible things.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell you everything that you're doing in this fight. I'm not even aware of what's going on inside of me.
Correct.
I'm not even aware of what I'm feeling. Like, something that we did regularly in our marriage that destroyed it was I was paying way more attention to you and your behavior than to what was going on internally for me and what I needed. And this happens a lot of times. If you grow up with an abusive parent or an addict parent or a mentally ill parent, if you grow up around somebody who has unpredictable moods, what you start to do is you start to become hyper vigilant. I need to scan. I need to always know what's going on. I need to know whenever you are going to have a mood, whenever you're going to have a bad feeling, whenever you're going to have a reaction. If I can make sense, if I can build a pattern for when you have bad feelings, then I can feel safe again. And so we actually both got so good at being hyper vigilant about the other person. And what that meant is we were abandoning ourselves so often. I was way more like analyzing your behavior, analyzing what could have set you off, analyzing what it was that brought up your anger, instead of knowing what I'm feeling, knowing what I'm needing, having compassion towards myself, being able to share with you about what's going on inside of me. Instead, I was like, no, I'm just going to tell you about what you're doing wrong in this fight, what you're doing wrong with your moods, what you're doing wrong in your behavior, instead of even knowing, oh, I'm feeling scared. Oh, I'm feeling powerless. Oh, I'm feeling hurt. Oh, I'm feeling rejected. I didn't even know I felt any of those feelings. I didn't know I felt rejected. I didn't know I felt scared. I just felt like I was paying attention to what you were doing wrong. I was not feeling anything. I was just feeling that you were wrong.
Yeah. And so what you're communicating is neglect. So
Yes.
we were creating a cyclical behavior of self-neglect, because when I am consistently only paying attention to what you're doing, right or wrong, I'm not actually paying attention to me and what I need.
Yeah.
So I could have been actually, getting better acquainted with what my experience was, and then figuring out how to self-nurture. Like, oh, I need to actually even remove myself from this situation for a moment and go breathe and give myself some sense of healthy comfort, like a sense of understanding, like, okay, this is what's going on. I can understand this, validate myself. Like, yeah, this is really rough right now, but it's okay. We're going to come up with solutions. But again, as we're focused on the other person, how the other person is wrong and bad, and trying to figure that out logically, we create this self-neglect that actually perpetuates more pain inside of these cycles, because you have this feeling of, I'm abandoned, I'm alone, and there's nothing that I can do about it, because the truth is we cannot control another individual. So if I'm busy trying to figure out how to do things better so I can make you happy, I can't make you happy. It's not possible for me to make you happy. I can be the most loving, the most kind person.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, you can find fault with every single thing that I've done. And so the idea that I can control you is an illusion.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I don't think either of us were really aware of.
No. One of the biggest mistakes that couples make is they believe that they can create safety for themselves by controlling their partner. They believe that if I'm kind enough, you'll be kind back. They believe that if I do everything right, then you'll be happy. They believe that if I tell you everything you're doing wrong, then I'll feel safe. And so every person is looking for safety. How do I feel safe? How do I feel protected? How do I feel loved? And most of the time, we aren't taught that that is something that we can actually do a lot internally. There's a lot of safety I can provide for myself. And when I am safe for myself, when I am kind to myself, I know what I'm feeling. I can name what I'm feeling. I can be compassionate towards what I'm feeling. I can also know what boundaries I need. Then I can be honest and vulnerable from that place. When I know that there's safety that I have power over, I don't have to control you to try to get you to be that safe place for me. But most couples spend all of their energy at the other person. What's going on with you? You're the problem. If you become safe, I'll be safe then. If you change your behavior, then I'll soften. I did that for years. I was trying to get you to be safe so that then I could become safer for you.
Right.
And so instead of pointing the finger at everything you're doing wrong, I had to actually start to learn safety for me, which again was part of it was self-awareness. What am I feeling? What's going on in my body? What do I need to have compassion for? What micro choices can I make to feel safe in this moment? And when I say micro choices, it's like, do I need to take a break from this conversation? Do we need to finish this conversation while we're going for a walk? Do I need to go do some breath work and then come back? Like, what is a micro choice I can do so that I can get back to safety? Do I need to go call a friend who loves me so that I can get my relationship circuits back on so that then I can actually have this, like, how do I get to safety? And then how can I interact with you from that place instead of demanding that you create the safety for me to be able to walk into?
Yeah. And so what you're talking about is learning how to become powerful, right? And for me, as I got into the relationship, I had an immense amount of learned powerlessness or learned helplessness. And what that ultimately, what I learned in my childhood is that nothing that I can do in this situation will positively impact my life.
Absolutely.
Like, no matter how good I am, it's going to fall on deaf ears. It's not going to change the outcome of the pain that I'm going to experience. So if
you set boundaries, it's not going to change the outcome. If you throw a fit, it's not going to change. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm at the whim of the individual across from me and whatever their emotional state is.
Yes.
And I watched that pour over into my experience at my job right before we got married, where I'm experiencing this clergy abuse inside of my situation. And years later, I mean, it's crazy. Years later, I'm confronting this individual's board member, and their response to me is, I don't get why you didn't just get the fuck out of there in this experience. And I was like, oh, well, you don't clearly understand learned powerlessness, and you don't understand grooming behavior. You don't understand dominance. You don't understand what it is to feel powerless to somebody who's in a position of power. And so what that did to me as I reflect on that, like when I came into marriage, I had so much learned powerlessness and helplessness that I started out with suicidal ideation in my childhood. I especially had intense suicidal ideation working in the workplace with this person that was out of control and crazy with their behavior. And then I get into marriage and we're having these experiences and I'm like, I'm ultimately just powerless inside of this. There's nothing I can do. And so on my end, I would circle into this learned helplessness that would trigger me into suicidal ideation. And it was this utter sense of defeat that I was living in. And again, what you're talking about is being able to find our power inside of it. And I was stuck looping in black and white thinking, sitting there going, there's nothing I can do. I've done everything that I know how to do. There's no way out of this circumstance. And for a lot of people who might be listening to this, you may be, hearing our story and going, man, there's aspects of this that feel eerily similar. And one of the things I want to tell you is that for every place that you feel trapped and defeated, there are secret option C's, which is something that Abby introduced to me inside of marriage. She's like, Justin, there's like a dozen different options. And I'm like, no, there's only A and B. What the hell are you talking about? And, it's profound to think that there's many other options, but as long as you're inside of trigger brain, as long as you're inside a sense of feeling deeply unsafe inside of yourself, it's going to be really hard for you to think outside of the box about the possible options that could exist.
Yeah. The learned helplessness created chaos in our relationship.
Completely.
Because both of us would get stuck inside of ourselves. Like, you would try all these different ways to help me. And if it didn't work, you'd get mad at me that it didn't work. You'd be like, I've done everything right. Why aren't your feelings gone? And I would feel the same way. I did everything right. Why are you still upset? And I think that is a very common pain point for couples. I'm doing everything right. I'm trying so hard. I did this and this and this healthy. And one of the problems is the idea that, like, we can't do everything right and make somebody happy.
Yeah.
The other problem is often we didn't actually do everything right. We just did everything we knew.
Right. There was many other options of things that we could do that could be very reparative and restorative to the relational connection.
I hate to tell people this because I counsel people with this all of the time, where they will say, I did everything right. And then we'll go into it and I'll be like, well, did you ask this? Or did you say this? Or did you set this boundary? Or did you walk away? Or did you? And they're like, oh, there was like 30 things I could have done.
Totally.
And I'm like, yeah. And we just didn't have those tool belts.
Yeah.
We didn't know, which is why we do all the courses we do now, because we want to actually give people the tool belts that we learned that have helped us so much.
Yep.
If we could go back and teach us a few things about what was going on inside of us, and a few things, like, because your learned helplessness created a place where you'd feel powerless, and then you would dominate.
Right. Yep.
Because you felt so powerless. And it makes so much sense to me when you grow up and there is nothing that you can say or do to protect yourself from a punishment that is not safe.
Right.
You learn in your body, there's no point. And so you might try a couple pathways and then your body just kicks over for you. It takes over and it says there's no point. You are back in your childhood. You are back trapped in a situation where you're going to be abused. You're going to be hurt. You're going to be not listened to. You're going to be dominated, because our childhood so impacts how we see our partner. And so whatever learned powerlessness we had from our childhood, we then feel with our partner, whether or not our partner wants to dominate us or not. We feel the same things that we went through.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So when I look at a whole portion of the first half of our relationship, a lot of it was us being in so much pain over and over again that there was like, this thing's either we figure this out, like we get pretty aggressive at trying to find solutions, or this isn't going to survive.
Yeah.
And, even in the question that the person initially asked, like, there was this ravenous sense inside of me personally that I'm like, I have to find solutions. Like, and I couldn't do the learned powerlessness any longer. And there was this fighting inside of myself between me and God, and like, what do I do? What are the answers inside of this? How do I fix me? There's something clearly wrong with me. There was something about, you get enough pain in circumstances that you come to the end of yourself, the end of your pride that says, I'm good. Everything's okay. I don't need to look at that. And you go, I'm not good. Everything is not okay. I have to look at whatever. It doesn't matter what I have to look at. I'm willing to do it because I want out of this pain.
Yeah.
And my solution with ending my life felt like such a feeble solution. It felt like, that's so giving up.
Yeah.
And I'm not shaming myself for that.
Sure.
I'm just like, that was such a like cheap way out of the situation. I'm like, there has to be a million other steps that are better than that.
Yes.
that could actually bring a good and abundant life. And I was like, if I am going to live, I'm going to find out how to live an abundant life.
Yeah.
And so for me on my end, I hunkered down inside of that. I asked a lot of questions and I got pretty submissive to whatever it was that I thought I needed to do to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we both, I guess I'll continue on. So we got married our first year. We had a lot of surprises for both of us. I want to say one more issue that I think really impacted us, and that was projecting. So, and this is one of the most common relationship problem makers, is projecting onto our partner from our history. And so I remember in our first year of marriage, I would be doing something to love you and you would get angry at me. And I would be so confused because here I am, I'm being kind, I'm tenderhearted, I'm trying to do something, and you're like so angry at me and assuming the worst about me. And so as we would process through that, why that was happening, what was going on, you would share things about your childhood that would make sense. Oh, of course you thought I was actually doing this. Like I was being condescending when I asked that, but I was actually being curious. Of course you felt trapped by that because that's what happened when you were a kid, but that's not what I was meaning. And so what happened was I began to feel so hurt by how you were projecting onto me. I felt like no matter what I do, you're not going to see me. You see me through the lens of a lot of filters that feel so opposite of what who I'm trying to be. And so I started getting with the feeling like you were projecting onto me, which there was a lot that you projected. And there were ways that I was affecting you that I wasn't aware of also. Both things are true.
Yeah.
But what I did is I decided everything is projection then. All of your reactions are from your childhood. And so I stopped thinking, how could what I did be a part of this? How am I affecting him in a negative way? And I didn't mean to do that. It wasn't a conscious choice, but it was just this belief of like, this is so crazy. You're clearly reacting to me when I'm not doing those behaviors. So none of what you say is really valid.
You know what? Well, just what's funny about that is the same thing was happening for me, where I was like, I feel so, this is her issues. She's not looking at her issues and she's just wanting to make me the problem inside of this thing. So then I shut down looking honestly at like, what role could I be playing inside of this thing? Again, this is all self-protection, right?
Yeah.
This is like, all right,
This
nothing's
feels so
working. This
unsafe.
feels so unsafe. Now I'm just going to decide like, you're the villain.
Your issues. These are your issues. Yes. And we both were doing that to each other. And so then neither of us were honestly looking at how we were impacting the other.
No.
And both of us were blaming
the
other person for being crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where we were finding our safety, was in labeling each other as crazy.
Yeah. Because we have to find safety somehow. And if I can say, the reason this feels bad is because you're unsafe, then somewhere in my mind, I can separate from you enough to feel like I can be safe.
Yeah. I can justify putting blockades up inside of my soul, walls up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought that was a good flow that you were saying.
No. So ultimately, again, it's an issue of self-protection. Again, we're talking about major turning points for us ultimately came when we could recognize our nervous system, our attachment styles, and what was going on inside of our body. Yeah. And as humans, we're all trying to get back towards safety. What feels safe, and how do I get to that safety? Am I going to have to perpetuate domination back on someone else?
Right. That was a way to get back to safety.
Right.
If I dominate you enough, then I can have a boundary I can hide behind.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. But we're aggressively as humans after safety, which is very reasonable. We all want to feel loved, connected to, safe inside of that. And until we could get to understanding that, we constantly were having, we'd learned a lot.
Yeah.
We learned a lot about the human dynamic.
Yep.
We had healed a lot of things. But
we healed a bunch from our childhoods, and that did help a lot.
Yeah, that was massively helpful in the process. But it still wasn't solving being able to get regulated inside of our own body and feel safe inside of ourselves.
Yes.
There was a constant threat that was still looming. And so then, we could go 6 months, 3 months, 2 months without something major. And then we'd have this cataclysmic explosion between us. How did we get here? Well, that's right. We don't know, still don't know how to regulate. We still have threat going on. We don't know how to identify the threat that's going on inside of us.
Yeah. And we don't know how to, we don't know what to do when the feelings and intensity gets really big. We didn't know what to do except to release it towards each other to get back to safety. And even that was, so our brains often make up a false safety that ends up hurting us more. So what I mean by that is, let's say that I'm having a ton of anxiety in our relationship and I'm feeling scared about you having bad moods or something. And my anxiety is building, your anxiety is building. Well, one of the ways that people will try to get to safety is to get into a fight, because then all of the anxiety diminishes. Then everything comes to a head. Then everything gets on the table and honest. And so in the past, I would pick a fight in order to get to safety because I was trying to get back. I had so much anxiety. I needed a way to get the anxiety out. And so we've learned how to get anxiety out without having to do it with our partner. We've learned how to use our words, how to be vulnerable, how to share in real time, how to narrate our feelings, which is really, really powerful. So we got married our first year. We talked about this is the emotional process we went through for years. We grew. As we were doing this, though, we were rigorously running after learning emotional health.
Yeah.
And so we were sharing what we were learning with people as we were learning it.
Yeah. Well, we were it became such a high priority for us to understand our own condition. So it became a priority to communicate about it back and forth with other people and stuff.
To be honest.
One of the things I want to add this to that we discovered is a deep sense of codependency that both of us had. And that played a huge role because without understanding our codependency, we would have continued to neglect ourselves and not show up authentically and keep trying to control each other. And once I could realize in my codependency, I'm not okay with her not being okay. And I felt tormented by that. And I need to make sure that she's okay consistently. And when I could identify, this is codependent behavior, I could then ask, what does love look like outside of the bounds of codependency? Which that was also one of the staple foundations of our relationship from the get-go. No matter how messy we were, we both had a foundation that said, I want to know how to love really well. I want to know what love looks like and how to extend that to another person. And so there was this search for an understanding of the word love, not just romance, but this love that looked like an action in the way that we related to one another.
Yeah.
And that was such a governing part of our journey as I was like, love doesn't look like codependency. Love looks like being okay with her not being okay, allowing her to have her feelings. It looks like being able to acknowledge the role that I've played in painful ways and stuff like that. And so that was such a vital part of the way that we navigated relationship, was that value system at the foundation of it.
Yeah, I love that. For me, I think that we had every year we were getting better. Every year we were healing more. But when I got PTSD was the best. The same year that I got PTSD, we both started working with a trauma counselor. She diagnosed you with CPTSD. I had PTSD. And that's when we started learning about trauma. That's when we learned how much we had, in trauma, you have to disconnect from your body entirely to survive. You have all these protectors that you use. And when we started, so that's where I'm like, getting PTSD probably saved my life.
Yeah.
I mean, it drove me to have to relearn
Like
an entire new way of being.
Right. The symptoms that finally express themselves.
They were so out of control.
Surface.
My life, I was so out of control to PTSD. Like, it's like my body took over and it said, you've been going through enough. If you don't figure out how to live in the world different, you're not going to make it.
And that wasn't just related to our relationship, right?
No.
Like, it was like,
I went through a season in my 30s of 20 different back-to-back, very intense situations, emergencies, traumas that built on each other, and then that snapped me. It was too many threats too quickly in a row.
Right.
And a lot of like wild things that happened back to back to back to back. And so that is what actually snapped me. And my body was like, we can't live this way anymore.
Yeah.
And
our normal can no longer be this normal.
I can't do this. And I hate PTSD. Is like one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. Humiliating, painful, and it saved my life because it helped me learn all of the things that, like, I had been disconnected from my body for years. I was not listening to what my body was trying to tell me. I wasn't listening. I was sick for years, so I thought my body was the worst. I wasn't aware that it could help me know when I needed a boundary. I wasn't aware that it could help me know what I need to feel safe and stable. I wasn't aware that it could help me actually love myself, that it could help me know truth inside of my own being, that it could help me find my own voice. Like, repairing the relationship with myself once I understood how my nervous system worked dramatically changed my life.
Yeah. Same here. It was like this deep repair of with self relationship that was going on. And that's happened like we're married 17 years now. Is that where we're at now?
Yeah.
And that's been over the course of the entire 17 years is how do we get back to our authentic self? The most innocent parts of ourselves before all the messiness of life hit. How do we get back to that person that really is connected to the truth of love?
This is what I think the turning point was in our relationship. We stopped trying to fix the other person and we went and worked on our own stuff.
Yeah.
When our marriage was the worst, we stopped doing marriage counseling and we went and learned, how do I get safe inside of me? How do I handle my big emotions? How do I have compassion on myself? How do I learn to be connected to myself enough to be present? How do I learn to be vulnerable enough to share what's going on inside of me instead of blaming you? We both had to learn our own self. We both had to stop looking at the other person as the big threat. And we had to look at, how can I transform how I am operating in the world? How do I get connected to safety? And that is actually, and probably because that broke our codependency, it broke blame, it broke lawyering. It really started to, that is, I think, when the dynamic changed.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I mean, like, I've had 6 or 7 different therapists in different type of therapeutic modalities that have been key rock stars for each part of my journey.
Yeah.
And they've helped build piece on piece until I could get to the point where I could fully just focus on me. Like, everything was helping to facilitate all the way down to, how do I come face to face with myself in every area of this and find my power and find my voice. And that, like you said, like, I found my safety not in us finding necessarily resolution, but I found my safety within myself, within that sense of personal empowerment where I understood what's going on in me, understanding what I need, understanding how to take care of myself. And it completely changed the game in the way that we related.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking even like boundaries. You have to feel powerful in a relationship. You have to be able to say, this doesn't feel good, or I don't like this, or I don't want this. Otherwise, you're going to be traumatized. If you have no ability to say no, things that creates trauma. The actual experience of trauma is feeling like you cannot say no.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the person is traumatizing you. It just means inside of yourself, if you feel like there's no ability to say no, that feels really painful. And so when you started learning, I'm allowed to say no, I can hear when my body needs to say no. And now I can learn how to say no in a kind way.
Yeah.
Now I can learn how to say no and still keep my love on.
I think about my counselor, Barry. He was so vital inside of that because him and I would have a lot of conversations where I'm like, yeah, but Barry, if I tell her this, she's going to blow a cork. And he was like, okay, so you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
I am scared. He was like, so you're scared of punishment. I am scared of punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is this a her problem or is this a you problem? And I'm like, this is a me problem.
Wow.
So I have to find my courage. I have to find my bravery. I have to find my peace, even if there is a storm. Maybe there is no storm whatsoever. Maybe I made it all up in my head that she's going to do this. But in the worst case scenario, she's dissatisfied. She's angry. Can I find peace within myself inside of that and overcome this fear? And as I did that, like I was able to start utilizing boundaries, which I didn't know how to. I mean, I had been using them in different ways, growing throughout the years. But this was a vital implementation of boundaries starting to happen, of being aware of my needs and communicating them in ways, like you said, in kindness. And again, you're talking right there, that like, that's what was saving our marriage and restoring our marriage, is that personal empowerment on both sides.
Yeah. Boundaries saved our marriage.
Yeah.
And I think boundaries within marriage isn't talked about enough.
Yeah.
I think we should do a whole podcast episode on that.
I'm in.
Because boundaries inside of marriage are as important as boundaries outside of marriage. If you feel powerless, like you can't set boundaries, then you will act out. Your body will find a way to set boundaries for you, whether it's that you're checked out on your phone, whether it's that you're always busy and don't want to be home, whether it's that you're having anger. If you can't set boundaries with your partner, your life will find a way to create boundaries.
Right.
And so the safest thing you can do is learn healthy, good boundaries.
Yeah.
That can still be loving and kind.
Yeah. I had something really good to say to that, and then I lost it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this is all your fault. No, healthy sense of personal autonomy is what I was going to talk about. When there was a sense of, for me, I didn't know where I ended and you began, where I begin and you end, or what is it? I end and you begin. That's what it is. Yeah. I didn't know where that was, right? Like, because there was a shared sense of personhood in my childhood.
Yeah, you had a lot of enmeshment.
So I get into this and I'm like, I don't know where to put a boundary. I don't know where to say no inside of this stuff. I don't know what.
Am I allowed to say no?
And trying to figure out my own personal agency and autonomy was so vital. And that didn't turn into selfishness. That actually turned into healthily relating in loving ways where I could give myself away properly and take care of myself in a way where I didn't have to result in like dominating reactive ways that were unkind any longer.
Yeah.
And I could justify now internally what I needed. My whole life was like, I can't actually justify what I need unless I vilify this person. But I suddenly could be like, it just simply is. I have a right to personal agency. This is what I feel. This is what I need. I'm going to act on it and be kind about it.
Yeah.
So
it changed my life because in our marriage, in the beginning, you set boundaries by being cold.
Yeah. Distance.
By turtling inside of yourself. Like, most of my pain was around how you set boundaries, even though you weren't setting boundaries.
Right. Because you'll try to find a way to set boundaries, even if you don't adhere to them or like them or believe in them.
Yep.
You'll still do it. And that was me. I would get very quiet. I would shut down. And that energy was cold. Like, F off, leave me alone.
Yep.
Like, don't come around me.
Totally. So now you'll use your words. You'll say, I feel really overwhelmed or tired. I really want to connect with you. Can we connect later? Or I think I need some downtime. Can we connect afterwards? Or I'm feeling really a lot of anxiety right now. I don't think this is a good time for me to be able to have empathy. But I do want to hear from you.
Yeah.
You've learned how to have boundaries with your words so that your coldness is not the thing setting the boundaries.
Yeah.
And that changes everything in relationships. When you can actually have boundaries in a healthy way, then you don't have to ice your partner out.
Yeah. And what I want to say, because we got to get towards wrapping this up, you know, our general evolution, like one of the things that the connected life is founded on is the idea of coming alive in the midst of your messiness.
Yes.
We're just messy. We're imperfect
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
And the idea is that we took the truth that we were discovering that was being imparted to
Mhm.
us from the get-go,
Mhm.
long before the podcast started, and said, we're going to share it freely with the people around us.
Yes.
We're just going to like love people and express it.
Yeah.
And then we get to the podcast and we're like, we still haven't arrived in marriage. We're still having blow-ups and stuff like that. And we could either spin out inside of shame and turtle and shut down and be like, oh, we're not worthy of like communicating about this. Or we go, this is what qualifies us, is our honest connection to the reality of this and facing ourselves in this stuff. And so we're going to continue to share it. And so I've watched that through every part of everything that we've gone through, we've extended ourselves authentically and openly to the world around us and said, come participate in both the victories and the failures and the messiness and the beauty. Come partake in all of it. And
I think that's how we started. That's been our core value from the get-go. We're messy. Like our first episode was us telling on ourselves. Our very first episode, we got into a fight. And so then we told about that fight on the podcast episode. And we have a lot of episodes throughout the years processing through all that kind of stuff. And so there is a huge core value for we're honest about where we're at, and we're honest that we're messy, and we're honest that we're growing, and we're honest that we're still on the journey, but we have made it a long distance. So like we're not arrived, but we do have lots of maps that we can give for as far as we've come.
We don't have it all figured out, but we figured out some things.
Yeah, a few things. Yep. Exactly.
We know a few things that don't work.
We're still left up, but we know a few things. That should be our new tagline. Welcome to the Connected Life. We're still left up, but we know a couple things.
I think that one of my dreams, as this is just random thoughts, one of my dreams is that we're inspiring people in that authenticity, you know, where people are going like, I don't have it all together, and that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm neglectful of what I don't have together. It means that in the middle of not having it together, I'm still living. I'm still contributing. I'm still, you know, and to me, I feel like so many people in positions of authority put on the plastic mask. They try to hide the reality. They have to pretend like they've arrived somewhere. And I don't believe I'm ever going to arrive. I believe I'm going to continually be a better expression of love than I was before. But I'm not going to arrive, and I'm going to keep doing really messy things. And hopefully it doesn't surprise people because I'm telling on myself enough that they're like, yeah, he already told us he was screwed up. So we're not surprised by the mess there. But we're also not surprised that he chose love, and he chose to face himself, and he chose to like correct himself. And, you know, that's my hope, is that that's also a model for people that they can continue to journey out. Yeah.
My advice for people as I'm listening to this, that's a funny thing. I'm talking, but for people listening, one thing I would do is look at your own relationship and look at, if you notice, we talked a lot about the circumstances around how our marriage happened, our childhoods, and then the actual circumstances when we got married, because a lot of our judgments towards our partners happen in our first few years together. And a lot of them the judgments can be made based on huge life events that are happening. So there were a lot of situations that happened from you because of the life events you were coming out of, that I just thought this must be who they are. There was a lot of things with me based on the life events where I was at that you're like, this must just be who she is. And so unpacking our story is often looking at what are all the pieces of what we were protecting ourselves from? What are all the places we were having coping mechanisms that then impacted each other? And I think if you can have conversations with your partners like that, what are the ways that I was in coping mechanisms that might have impacted you? And vice versa. Instead of being like, see, this is what you did in our first year and it drove me nuts. Being able to actually hear each other and start to just validate a little bit of the pieces that you can recognize that you maybe added. I think that's a great way to do it, is to start with what you've contributed.
It's really good. Yeah. Ownership is empowerment. Yeah.
And it's validating. And oftentimes people, if they want that emotional health, they will also feel the invitation to go on the journey of seeing, where were you self-protective? And I think if we could start to view the world through our behaviors are either our authentic self when we're feeling safe or self-protective when we're feeling threat, then we start to see we're all doing a lot of human things to try to get to safety. We're all trying to protect ourselves in a lot of ways. And if we can kind of put down our judgment towards how that looks and start to see beyond that, then we can begin to extend compassion. Oh, you did that because you felt really unsafe. Oh, I did this because I felt really unsafe. Okay, those weren't helpful and it did create problems. But now that we are knowing better, you can learn out of any pattern or behavior that you've been stuck in.
Yeah. So good. Well, guys, thank you for listening. Thanks for writing that question that inspired this conversation. If you want to find out more about us, you can go to Justin and Abby. That's abi.com. You can find this podcast on YouTube if you are not already there through going to justinabby.com/theconnectedlife. It'll take you directly to our YouTube page. And you can go ahead and hit subscribe while you're there and then hit the bell button.
Ding.
Ding dong. Ding dong.
Share this with people if it impacts you.
Yeah, share it. Share it. There's hope. I believe there's hope for almost any circumstance. If there's a yes inside of our heart that is surrendered to love, to wanting to grow in the knowledge of it. When you have two people doing that. And so I think there's a lot of hope for some of the hopeless situations.
I feel sad because there's so many things we could have gotten into more in our story, but we made it. We made it through the story, which I feel great.
Yeah.
I mean, like we lived through the story.
You relationally lived through it right now?
No, I just mean in general, we made it.
We did.
We made it in real life.
We didn't get into a fight. This was great.
We're so good at it. But we didn't get to tell. We have a whole story up there of like what we actually step by step. But another day.
This was good. All right. I love you, Abby.
I love you too.
Glad you're my partner.
Me too. Goodbye.
Bye.